Hey everyone, my name is Sam, and I'm back to host the fifth webinar in our IELTS from start to finish series with returning IELTS expert Rocco Negro. Today, Rocco is going to be walking you through an IELTS reading and listening masterclass, so keep your ears open for some absolutely amazing tips. Without further ado, let's pass over to you, Rocco. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sam, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our masterclass today on reading and listening. My name is Rocco, and I've been involved in English language teaching for about 25 years, and I've been lucky enough to work here in Australia and overseas in Japan and China. I've worked in management and teaching and teacher training and assessment, and I've worked with IELTS for the last 20 years. So I hope today I can use some of my knowledge and expertise to give you a bit of a helping hand with your reading and listening preparation. Okay, so let's get started then, shall we, everyone? And so let's just have a quick overview of what to expect today. We're going to look at some practical reading and listening test tips to help you with your score. Understand a bit about the marking for the reading and listening. And the third one here is how to avoid costly mistakes. This is an important one actually, because sometimes people lose marks, but they're not completely aware of why they've lost them. So hopefully we can give you all some useful advice today in the masterclass. All right. So let's start with the reading aspect first. And let's have an overview of the academic and general training. In the academic reading test, it's 60 minutes in length, 3 sections. In total, there are 40 questions. All the topics are of general interest. Now, I know that some people worry that, oh, what if it's an article on a topic that I don't know about, if it's a topic about medicine or something like that. That's not to worry. There are a variety of topics, but the test doesn't actually check your knowledge. It checks your language understanding. So don't worry about that. 3 sections, so you might get a logical argument, a descriptive one, or a narrative one in there. And the general test, on the other hand, it's also 60 minutes, 3 sections as well, and you've also got 40 questions. That's similar. And of course, in both tests, the academic and the general, each question is worth 1 point each, so no difference there. You'll see there that with section 3, that's quite similar to the academic in that it's a long descriptive text. Again, it's a topic of general nature, but the difference really is in section 1, section 2. In section 1, you've got sort of everyday social survival texts. It could be some advertisements, for example, or there could be some posters where you have to search for information. Quite often, the text in those is a lot shorter. In section 2, you've got two shorter articles, and the topic of those are workplace related. So in some ways, you can kind of prepare for the section 2 part of the test because you know it's going to be a topic about work. So you can read articles about work-related topics, and as a way to prepare for that. Now, that's how the sections are different and the texts are different. However, when it comes to the question types, you'll find that the question types are very similar. You'll get true, false, not given in academic and general training. You'll have multiple choice in both, headings in both, etc. So in terms of preparation, the question type is pretty much the same. It's just the text type that's different. Well, before we go any further, I'd just like to get an idea about your own reading. So how often do you read something serious? I mean, like read a text message, something serious like a newspaper article or magazine article. Do you do that every day? Maybe 2 or 3 times a week, once a week, or rarely at all? Can I just get a bit of feedback from everyone? Can you tell me what kind of habits you have? You can be honest, it doesn't matter. Let's have a look. Oh, good. A few people have told me. Oh, wow, lots of responses there. A few rarelies. A few people doing 2 to 4 times a week. Interesting. Thank you, everybody. That's all good. I could see that a lot of people do it maybe 2 or 3 times a week or once a week. Is a very common kind of response. I was sort of hoping for a few more responses here, something to do every day. Now, remember that doing IELTS practice test, that is handy and it's very useful. However, you need to complement that with other kinds of reading practice. Test practice, yes, fine, but mix it with other kinds of reading. And you'll see here it's mentioned magazine and newspaper article, because in fact, the IELTS reading tests, the actual texts are based on newspaper and magazine articles. So it's very handy to get used to reading that type of article. Doing it every day is great. It's hard to keep motivated like that, I know, especially when people have commitments like work and family and so on. But as a habit, try to be a bit regular and consistent. So maybe every day or 2 or 3 times a week is being consistent with your reading practice. Well, all right. Let's have a think about, oops, hang on a second. Reading skills. So, well, first of all, as I said, it's a 60-minute test, 3 sections, 40 questions. Look at this figure at the bottom here. Between 2,200 and 2,750 words. Now, that's an important thing, actually, because the number of words that you have to read. When doing reading practice, I believe it's a good idea to get used to reading texts that are quite long. You know, roughly, say, 700, 800, 900 word articles. And if you go to the news websites, those kind of articles are getting harder to find. You'll see that there are a lot of shorter articles. So it is important to get used to reading longer articles of 7, 8, 900 words, because that's what you have to do in the test. And perhaps you're very good at reading. That's great. But can you process this many words in an hour and do all the comprehension questions? So with the longer articles, there's a particular type of conditioning that you need to get used to. So practicing using short texts can help, but of course you do need to balance that with longer texts as well. Really, when it comes to reading, it's important to skim through the article, be able to do that quickly, and orientate yourself. It's good to scan for some keywords. That saves time. Look at the question. Look for nouns or names of things to scan and find in the article quickly. But the third one's very important. Don't just scan, find one keyword in the article and then one keyword in your question and think that you've found a match. That's not it. No, quite often you'll find the distractors or the incorrect answers are like that. You do need to read for detail. Make sure that your question and the passage and the sentence match. So it's important, once you've located the answer by scanning, then read the text for detail carefully. Don't rush through and just choose your answer simply because you've matched a keyword. Now, this is really important. This shows you some of the different question types. you can expect to find in the IELTS reading test. Multiple choice. And actually with multiple choice, there are some different types. A common one is where you have to have one correct answer, usually from a list of 4 options. Or maybe you need to choose 2 correct answers from a list of 5 or 6 or something like that. In any case, you look at the single answer option. 1 correct, 3 incorrect. The 3 incorrect ones, we call them distractors. And the thing about the distractors, you'll find that all 3 of them are mentioned in the article somewhere. What is important with multiple choice is that you look at the question part carefully, look at the keywords, scan the article, see if you can locate where the answer is, and make sure you read that area very carefully and process it and understand it. And perhaps even try to answer it independently without looking at the multiple choice options. Remember, the 3 incorrect answers are going to distract you. So read the question, locate the answer, see if you can answer it yourself independently. Then have a look at that list of 4 choices. See if any of those choices perhaps match what you were thinking. Be careful. If you try to match A, B, C, D to the article, you're going to find the answer everywhere. You're going to find the answer. But do those options match the question? So be careful, because with the incorrect answers, they can take focus away from the correct answer. Multiple choice, by the way, the multiple choice answers appear in order in the text. So that means you don't have to begin with question number 1. My advice is look at the list. If there are 7 multiple choice questions, start with the question that's quickest to locate. And you'll know which one is quickest to locate. Perhaps in one of them, there's a name of a person. Start there. If question 4 has a name of a person, begin there, because you can locate that answer quickly. Then you can go backwards, read up to find question 3, and read forward to find question 5, something like that. There are also identifying questions, true, false, and not given. And I know that people don't like this not given, but we're going to talk about that in a little while. And there's yes, no, not given. These 2 styles are very similar, but there is a difference. True, false, not given looks at factual information. However, yes, no, not given looks at opinion, like the writer's views. So in that case, you do have to look for different types of language. Maybe with yes, no, not given, you're looking more for adjectives that reflect that. The answers for these ones are normally in order as well. So like multiple choice, you don't have to begin with the first one and then go to the second one and then the third one. Begin with the question that's quickest to locate, and then go up or down from that question. There are different types of matching questions. This first one here, information to a paragraph. And this is one that a lot of people find difficult. Remember, when you have to locate information in a paragraph, these statements or sentences, they're not a summary of the paragraph. That's the headings question. The headings question is a summary of the whole paragraph. But the locating information, this is one little piece of information that's hiding somewhere in the paragraph. This tends to be a more challenging question. My advice is perhaps leave this one to last or later. Do the other questions first. For example, if there's true, false, not given as well for the same article, do that first, because the answers are in order and it's perhaps a bit easier to locate them. And then do this information, locating information to a paragraph later, when you're a little bit more orientated in the article, you're more familiar. Now, in this particular case, the answers are not in order. So rather than doing this one question by question, my advice is do this question paragraph by paragraph. And what I mean is go to paragraph A and read paragraph A first, not the questions. Read paragraph A first. After you read paragraph A, have a look at that list. Is anything from that list mentioned in paragraph A? Yes? No? Then move on to the paragraph B and repeat. I recommend doing it this way because your search area is quite small. You're only looking in one paragraph. If you're doing this one question by question, you're in fact scanning the whole article to find this one answer. That's a wider search area. Now, the same thing with headings. Do this one paragraph by paragraph. Read the paragraph first and look at that list of headings. You may notice, though, that they will offer you more headings than paragraphs. So there are a few extra ones quite often. My advice with this one is perhaps as an initial step, rather than debating what the answer could be initially, maybe just make a list of all the potential answers very quickly. Don't spend a lot of time. Read the paragraph carefully, look at that list of headings, and quickly note down how many possibilities there are. There could be just 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe. And do that for all the paragraphs. And then maybe at the end, with all the duplications, then eliminate them. If you've used option 4 on 3 occasions, for 3 separate paragraphs, then you can compare them and you can think, maybe option 4, I think, is a better fit for paragraph C. So rather than spending all that time debating what is the correct answer, as an initial step, just put all the possibilities. Other kind of things you have to match, you've got sentence endings. Perhaps you've got the half a sentence and then the other half is missing, and they quite often multiple choice. Now, with that case where you've got multiple options, quite often the answers are located in order, but the options are in a mixed order. Then you've got completion exercises like sentence completion. Maybe you have to write 1, 2, or 3 words, or even a number as well. Be very careful with sentence completion. It's important to have the right grammar. It means you need to include the article, the, or an, include the preposition. And also be careful with sentence completion, because if the answer is a noun and you're allowed, say, 2 or 3 words in your answer, maybe there is an adjective in there as well. So that adjective provides further definition. So think about that. If there's an adjective and noun collocation or combination, that could be handy as well. Oh, but by the way, just make sure there's no duplication with this one. If the question uses the word big, but in the article it uses the word large, don't write down large because there's a duplication there. Completing a summary is a very common question. Quite often the answers are in order, but by the way, you've got 2 types of summary. One where you have to get the words directly from the article, and another one where they provide you the options in a box. In that case, you have to write down the correct letter. And also labeling a diagram is another common thing, but that could be in a mixed order. Short answer questions are in order as well. These are ones that ask who, what, where, when, why, that kind of thing. So be very careful of the type of answer that you need to find for that one. It's a who, it's a person that you're looking for. Where, it's a location. So just be mindful of the type of answer in that one. All right, so let's have a closer look at true, false, and not given. Now, this is a sample article. It's not a full article. It's just the first few paragraphs. And on the left-hand side, you've got your questions. Now, with this particular task, my advice is to begin with, don't look at not given. My advice is use not given as your last option, not as your first option. It's always your last option. Just remove it temporarily and only use not given if you need it. Which means your first focus is whether it's true or false. And that's a lot easier to work out as a first step. True, it's the same as this, or false, it's the opposite or different to this. Now, when we look at the sentences, let's look at sentence number 1. I think there are 2 types of keyword when it comes to, and by the way, this is the same strategy for yes, no, not given. In the sentences, I think there are 2 types of word. One word, a keyword, is to locate the answer. But another kind of keyword helps you decide the answer, whether it's true or false or not given. So quick question, go to the chat box if you can, everyone. Look at sentence number 1. There's probably one word in here that will help me locate the answer in the article. Which word do you think in sentence number 1 would help me find the location of the answer? Oh, we've got a few votes already. Good. A couple more. Okay, great. Let's see what everyone thinks. A lot of people put descended. Descended doesn't help me find the answer. Aboriginal Australia. Well, true, but the whole article is about Aboriginal Australians. So that's going to be not as helpful. But I see a lot of people have put Africa. Yes, Africa is the key word to help me find the location of the answer. And there's a tip. Anything with a capital letter of a name of something like Africa. And if you scan the article, oh, here, I found the word Africa in this paragraph here, in the first paragraph. So I'm guessing the location of question number 1 is somewhere in the first paragraph. Great. Now, once you've located it, go back to the sentence and then think about another word that can help you decide the answer. Now, remember I said, forget not given for a moment, only use not given as a last option. Let's think true or false. And in this particular case, it's a good idea to think about words that we can make opposite. True, it's the same. False, it's the opposite or different. Quite often, those words are things like adjectives, adverbs, or maybe just verbs. It can be prepositions or proportion words. So have a look at sentence number 1. Let's have one more vote in the chat box. For me, there's one word that will help me decide the answer, whether it's true or false. What's your view, everyone? Have a quick type. There's one word for me that would, 1 or 2, that would decide the answer for me. I've got a few people have voted. Let's see what we say. Descended. Yes, fantastic. Good, because this is the key word. So true or false? Same or opposite or different? True, descended from Africa. False, descended from somewhere else. Well done. Let's have a look now at the second one. Oh yes, sorry. That's the key sentence there. And the first one, yes, a lot of people said true. So well done. That's true. Because Now, you'll notice something. They didn't mention the word descended, did they? So what they're going to do, they're going to paraphrase those sort of keywords. And I think a few people mentioned that before in the chat box. I think a few people mentioned the synonym, yeah, ventured, good, was used to replace descended. Fantastic. So synonyms are very, very important, not just in the reading, in the listening as well. Synonyms, synonyms, synonyms. So finding those particular synonyms, yes. Looking at question 2, so again, when we look at location, and maybe the number might catch your eye. So it could be 80,000. Ancestors, maybe they mention ancestors somewhere, but the key word here is, we want to know, this time it's the verb. When did they settle? Did they settle 80,000 years ago, or did they settle another time? When did they settle? That's the key word. In this case, it's the verb. So, a few people have given me their vote. False. Well done, everybody. Everyone's saying false. Fantastic. Great. Yes, it was in fact 50,000 because, now again, settled in Australia, they didn't use the word settled, did they? Did you see the synonym? Yeah, good, fantastic, arrived. Well done, guys. Because they arrived in a single migration, 50,000. They didn't settle 80, they settled at 50,000 years ago. Good work. Let's have, it's false. In the third one, they do mention the world. Interesting. In this case, I don't think it's the verb that's the most important word. Remember, looking for true, the same, false, something we can invert or change or make opposite. And what do you think, guys? Key word for number 3. What's a word we can flip and make opposite? What's everyone saying? Diverse. Good. Not just diverse. Genetically diverse is important, and not just that. Even the word most genetically diverse. I would say the word most is the most important word. Either they're the most genetically diverse, or they're the least, or perhaps they're the most true, second most false. Let's have a look. The evidence for this one. Now, this is question 3. The answer is not up. These answers are in order, so you can go down, down, down. Go to the next, below that one. Talks about greater genetic diversity. So it mentions genetically diverse, but they compare the east and the west of Australia. But here it says the most in the world. We do know about east and west of Australia, and they compare with Siberia and North America. Do they mention, is it the most in the world? And fantastic, not given. They don't mention that. So in this case, I don't know if it's true because it doesn't say most in the world. I don't know if it's false. It doesn't say least in the world. It doesn't say most. It doesn't say least. It doesn't say most. It doesn't say second most. I don't know. So because I don't know if it's true or false, then go to your third option of not given. Great. So there we are, not given. Well done. I was very impressed with a lot of those answers. Well done, everybody. So now just show you some general, I was saying in the general training, section 3 is very similar to the academic, long article. Section 2, you've got 2 workplace articles. And section 1, I said, were very short text. Could be like an advertisement. So here's an example that you might get. A, B, C, D, E, F. These are advertisements for a job advertisements. And look here, 2 jobs are in restaurants. Careful, you can look at the heading and see hospitality, but don't just base it on the heading. Keep reading to make sure that it's the chef is actually in a restaurant, not chef in a school, for example. Watch out for distractors. So choosing jobs from here. So this is the typical type of thing you can get. So as you can see a lot of these sort of things in everyday life, on the internet, newspapers, if you still read those. So what to look for? As I said, synonyms are big. So your vocabulary range is very important. Look out for distractors. They were talking about genetic diversity and culturally diverse. That's not the same thing. Watch out for words that are there to trick you. So time is precious. I mean, read the questions first, look at the keywords, and skim the text. See if you can locate the questions quickly. Underline your keywords. Those doing the computer-delivered test, you can still highlight, so don't worry about that. Be very careful the number of words in your answer. No more than 2 words or 3 words, if there a number is allowed or not. If you see a word that you don't know, don't worry about it. You can try and guess the meaning from the context, but otherwise, leave it, move on. If it's a very technical word in the academic test, they'll put a definition for you. Yes, if you're stuck on one question and you can't work out the answer, just write something and move on. Remember that the really easy questions are worth 1 point, and the really difficult questions are also worth 1 point. Try, but if you really can't work it out, at least put something. Remember, you don't lose marks. There are no penalties for wrong answers. So make sure by the end of the test, every question has an answer. All right, let's spend a little bit of time now on the listening test. Now, the listening test is about 30 minutes. There are 4 sections and 40 questions. Unfortunately, you can only hear the recording once. Unlike some other exams, but this one, yes, you can only hear the recording once. So your orientation to your question paper is very important. They do give you some preparation time. So during the preparation time, it's vital that you look ahead, look at all the headings, subheadings, and keywords, and get orientated to your text. And also, because you can only listen to the recording once, don't focus on just one question only. Focus on one question, but keep an eye on the next one, or the heading, or the keyword for the next one, just in case you missed it. So always look ahead at 1 extra or 2 extra questions. After the recording, after each sort of section, they do give you some time to review your answers. I know a lot of people use that time to preview the next section, but at the same time, it is handy to spend a little bit of time reviewing that section and doing it while it's fresh, especially when you've got a bit of doubt between a couple of questions. If anything, put down a couple of possibilities and underline the one that you're most confident about. For the paper-based test, you do have 10 minutes after the test to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. And that gives you time to do things like check spelling and so on. Now, 4 sections in the listening test. Now, I think section 1 and section 2, they've got a relationship because they're on everyday or familiar or general things. Section 1 can be about a daily task, like making a reservation, for example. Section 2 is a short talk, but something familiar, like a tour of the library. Section 3 and Section 4 are similar because they're more academic. Section 3, there's a discussion with some students and possibly a teacher or professor. Section 4 is a lecture, like Section 2, but it's something a lot more academic. Section 1 and 3 are similar because they're dialogues, they're people speaking together. And that's one type of listening, especially when people take turns. And Section 2 and 4 are similar because it's one speaker. So, you know, it's good to look for a variety of listening practice. As I said earlier, yes, you can do IELTS test practice, that's fine, but complement it with some other kinds of listening. See Section 1, conversation with an everyday social situation. Why not watch a TV drama? That covers a lot of those sort of everyday situations. You know, a lecture, listen to TED Talks. You've got a speaker there talking for a decent amount of time. And this is the thing, like the lecture is about 5, 6, 7 minutes. That's a long time to concentrate just on one speaker. At least in Section 1, where there's 2 speakers, you know, you've got that break in the dialogue. But Section 4 is a bit challenging because it's one speaker consistently. There's no break. Section 1 and Section 2, they give you breaks between halfway through, so you can pause and get your ideas. But Section 4, it's continuously 6, 7, 8 minutes. So you need that kind of listening fitness, if you like, being able to concentrate for that length of time. Watching, you know, perhaps news bulletins or panel shows where they discuss issues is a good idea. That way, you know, if you get that kind of discussion, like a current affairs discussion, is great for Section 3 because people have to listen. They listen and maybe accept another person's view or reject their view. Very similar to what people do in Section 3. Let's have a bit of a listening practice. Hopefully you guys have got a pencil and a piece of paper or something. It's Section 1. It's not going to be too difficult, but perhaps you can just test your listening, see how you go. This is a Section 1, as I said, and this is, look at this keyword here, booking form. This is an example of an everyday social situation, making a reservation. But in your preview time, always have a look at the keywords, date and time. It doesn't mention AM or PM here, so that's one thing to consider. If PM or AM is already mentioned, don't write it in your answer because it's already mentioned. So watch out for that kind of duplication. And you can see here it's a date, so be careful with things like dates, spelling, ordinal numbers, you know, like you could write, if it's the answer is 23rd of March, so you could put 23rd of March, or 23RD, not ST, be careful, that kind of thing. So you know the type of answer you're looking for, numbers. And you think, well, look at question 6. That's a number. Well, I know English numbers, they're pretty easy. But what you'll find quite often, they might give like a credit card number or a telephone number. These numbers tend to be quite long. So some people struggle with processing a long list of numbers. So watch out for that. Quite often it's common for there to be an error, not just in number, maybe in the spelling of a person's name. And remember also that you're going to hear distractors in your answers. There could be a spelling mistake, or the numbers are mixed up, or when it comes to the type of booking, perhaps, or the type of seat. Maybe there are 2 or 3 options. So you have to listen out for negatives like not, or isn't, or don't. I thought, but that kind of thing. So it's not always the first answer you hear. That first answer could be like a distractor. And also look for synonyms. Book, like with the reading, maybe it's reserve or something like that. Okay, so let's have a listen and see how you go. See if you can get, this is not a full section 1, it's only 8 questions, by the way. See if you can get 8 out of 8. That's a little challenge for you. Ready?
Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, Theatre Royal Plymouth?
Oh, hello. I'd like to make a booking, please.
Yes. What is it you want to see?
The Imposter.
Right. And which day did you want to come?
Friday the 25th.
Just a moment and I'll check availability on the computer. Oh, sorry, we're fully booked for that performance.
Oh, dear. What about the following day, then?
The 26th? Yes, that's okay. We've got 2 performances on that day, one at 3:30 and one at 7. Which would you prefer?
Oh, the later one, please.
How many people?
Well, there are 4 of us.
Are there any concessions? Any children?
Oh, I'm not sure. My daughters are 15 and 12. Do they get concessions?
Only the 12-year-old, I'm afraid.
Oops.
1 child and 3 adults. Any idea where you'd like to sit? Stalls or circle? Tickets for the stalls are a bit more expensive. £12 for adults and £8.50 for children. The circle costs £10.50 and £6.50.
Do you get a good view from the circle?
Oh, yes. And in fact, we've got some seats left at the front, if you'd like those.
Right. We'll go for those, then.
Right, that's seats A21 to 24, then. They're very good seats.
That sounds fine.
So let's see, that comes to £38 altogether for the tickets. How do you want to collect them? Shall I put them in the post? They'd be sent today by first-class mail, and there'd be an additional charge of £1 to cover postage and administration. Or do you want to get them from the box office yourself?
Oh, yes. Could you send them, please?
No problem. That'll be £39 altogether.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10.
So as you can see here, you don't have to preview all the questions at the beginning. There is a break in the middle for you to preview the next questions.
Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Could I just take your card details? What kind of card is it? Visa? Switch?
Mastercard.
Okay. And the number?
It's 3290 5876 4401 2899.
2899. Okay. And the name on the card, please?
It's Mr. J. Whitten. WHITTON.
N for never or M for mother?
N for never.
Thank you. And now I've nearly finished, but I just need your address and postcode.
Yes, it's 42 South Street,
Okay. Is that Plymouth?
London.
And the postcode?
It's SW2 5GE.
That's fine then. The ticket should be with you tomorrow. Is there anything else I can do for you?
Yes, I was wondering if I could get regular information about what's on.
Certainly. I can just add your name to our mailing list. Would that be okay?
That would be very good. Yes, please. Oh, and there is something else, sorry. One of our group is hard of hearing, and I've heard that you can supply special headphones.
That's right. As long as you tell us in advance, we can always do that. I'll book those for you now, and you can just collect them from the box office before the show.
Thanks very much for your help.
No problem. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
That is the end of section 1.
Okay, then they'll give you half a minute to check your answers as well. All right, let's see how you went. The date, the 26th. So as you can see there was a distractor. They did talk about one other date, but that wasn't available. So I went with Saturday, the 26th. The time, again, there were 2 options, and he preferred the later time of 7 p.m. The circle, again, 2 options. So there was a distractor in each case. And the row number, seat and row number, 821 to 824. The type, again, the person receiving the booking suggested 2 types of payment, but the person who was calling actually offered a third one. So then there were 3 possibilities. Mastercard. This was the number. As you can see, each number by itself is easy enough, but could you actually process all of them? So watch out for things like that, being able to process that amount of information. That's similar to the idea in section 4 about being able to process that many words as well. Written, if it's an unusual thing like a name, they will spell it for you. And there was clarification. End for never, headphones. And by the way, spelling is very important in the IELTS listening test. If you wrote headphones as 2 words, it would be incorrect. If you wrote headphone without the S, that would be incorrect as well. If you put headphones with a hyphen, that would also be incorrect. So the spelling is very important. Now remember, if a word has a hyphen in the middle, like the word good looking has a hyphen, that's counted as 1 word, not 2. All right, so let's look at some just general advice for the listening. Use your time beforehand to read the questions and see the topics. Don't forget the major heading at the top as well, and all the subheadings. That'll give you some idea of what to expect in terms of your topic. Highlight your keywords. That helps you focus. Synonyms, of course, look out for those. Now the answers, the questions are in order. So that's one thing that's great to know. But just when it comes to the questions perhaps where there are multiple options, the multiple options are not in order, but the question itself is in order. Watch the word limit, same as the reading. If it says no more than 2 words, make sure 2 words is your maximum. Be careful for extra words that are already in the question. Don't put paraphrases of those. Intonation is important, especially I think in section 3, because people have to agree and disagree and things like that. Even in the other sections, when people say, well, I was expecting this, but in fact, something else happened. There is intonation to indicate meaning, but particularly for the later 2 sections. So, what can we tell you about our make the most of every opportunity to use your English. Anything you can do it in English, as much as you can in English. Set targets for your preparation, and it's great if you have a target like I want to get band 7 or band 8. That's great, but make sure you've got some smaller and shorter targets. They're really important. That way you can feel like you're progressing and you're getting somewhere. Make sure you're clear about the academic or general training. You know, are you trying to enter a university course? Is it for professional registration perhaps? Or is it for migration? Understand the scoring, how you gain or lose points. And of course, doing IELTS preparation is great, or IELTS test practice is great, but you need to balance that with other kinds of English and practice to complement that. If you want to score like 7, and many people do, remember that's a lot of training. It's thousands of hours of actual using the language. There's no shortcut to a band 7. You know, take a long-term approach and a realistic approach. Remember, anything you do in English helps you push yourself every day, everywhere. Anything you can do it in English. A few things here for you to think about. We've got IELTS.idp.com. Have a look there for some resources. On Facebook as well, we've got IELTS Essentials, and on Instagram, IELTS Essentials. Great source of information there. IELTS by IDP, you can pick up some idioms and practical tips. Here, some good articles for you, and of course on YouTube as well. Use those resources. They come from a lot of IELTS experts, and very helpful advice. Just so you know, guys, there is another seminar on the 3rd of June. It's common IELTS mistakes to avoid. So book that one. That's a great one, actually, that one. I think not all test takers are completely aware of ways that they can perhaps lose points or lose marks. All right, so that's it for me. Thank you very much, everyone. But I do have some time available now to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, excellent webinar, Rocco. It feels like a little bit of a bonus study that people get to read the webinar slides and then listen to you present it. I feel like that's a little bit of reading and listening right there. Are you ready for questions?
I am, Sam. Let's go.
Amazing. Question 1, they say, "Good morning, sir. I want to know the secret to scoring highly in the IELTS listening." Do you have any secrets?
Well, the first one is practice. That's important. But you do need to do a lot of practice. And I think practice, not just audio only, you do need to do a lot of practice where there's audio and video. It's important that you do listening practice where you can see the speaker's face. Because you need to look at that kind of movement, facial movement, that picks up, you can pick up things like stress and intonation that way. Doing a variety of listening, not just IELTS test practice, but a variety, listening to a lot of different things, commercials, news, lectures, like TED Talks and so on. The greater the variety, the better. And also one more tip is organize your listening according to themes and topics. So don't just choose your favorite topic. Let's say if you love sport, that's good. Or if you're a health professional, that's good. But you need to vary your topics so you become familiar with them. And anything you can get a transcript for is handy. Sometimes these podcasts or news podcasts come with a transcript. So after you've listened to it, let's say 2, 3, 4 times, have a look at the transcript and see if there's things that you've missed. And if there are words that are unfamiliar, maybe you can try and guess the meaning of them and then analyze them with the transcript. So there are a few tips to score highly.
Those are some good secrets, I think, Rocco. I saw someone in the Zoom chat ask for sources, and I think we always say our website, which is IELTS.idp.com, is probably the best source of material for official IDP IELTS material that'll
yes, actually, Sam,
really help you boost your score.
All of that has been written by IELTS experts.
Amazing. I love it. Question 2, during the test, which is better, answering the questions while reading the passage or finishing the passage and then coming back to answer questions?
Okay. It really basically depends on the person, but I do know that some people like to read the passage first and become orientated. That can work. Some people feel a bit stressed because they feel like, oh, I'm losing time. For some people, it does work because they get much better orientated. So you may feel like you're losing time to begin with, but you catch up later because you're able to pinpoint the location of the answers. But if you're a slow reader and you struggle to do that, then maybe read the questions first, highlight the keywords and scan them in the article.
Sweet. Good answer. Thank you. Question 3. If the instructions say no more than 3 words and I answer with 1 or 2 words, will it be marked as incorrect?
No, because it says no more than 3 words. So that's the maximum. You can use, the minimum is allowed. You may only need 1 word.
Good answer. Do they ever try, like, is it often less than 3 words? They ask you for no more than 3 words? Do you find?
Sometimes it's 1 word only, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 2 words and or a number, or 3 words and or a number. There is a variety. So it's so important to keep an eye on that.
I agree. Question 4. Do you have any newspaper, magazine, or book recommendations that people should use to practice for their IELTS?
Now, in terms of news, well, you can go to the internet and a website, like a news website like Google, and search for a variety of topics, which is great. The only issue is a lot of the articles now you find are a bit short. So trying to find, when you do your searching for news articles, try to use not tabloid type, but more broadsheet type of news. In Australia, we have a newspaper called The Australian, for example. In Singapore, there's the Straits Times, for example. They have longer articles. So it's the length of the article that's important. And even within the news service, look at the editorial pieces as well. Not just a news story about something that's happened in the news, but look at the editorial, because the editorial, that's an opinion piece. Quite a lot of the other articles, just reporting what happened if there was a major event. But the opinion pieces, or in the editorial section, they're great because they're a lot more argumentative and more representative, I think.
Excellent, great answer. Thank you, Rocco. Question 5, this will be our last question for the night. I'm 15 days away from my IELTS test. Should I read newspapers or just focus on the practice questions? What do you recommend?
Why not do both? It's important to look at the practice questions to be very comfortable and familiar with the question types. That's great. And they're very authentic. As long as they're, let's say, they're authentic questions, authentic texts and authentic practice tests, that's fine. Do a bit of that, but also read other things, read news, do both. Always complement the test practice with other kinds of reading, because it's good to be able to read sometimes to find the argument yourself independently. Sometimes it's good to read without the questions, so you pick up these things yourself. I do find some people, they're good readers. Some people are, but they're good readers, but they get tripped up with questions. Sometimes it's good to read and find the focus yourself. Maybe read some articles and design your own questions. Why not? Try to think like an examiner, perhaps, that kind of thing. But yeah, why not do both?
I love that. I think that's a really good answer to close on. That was a lot of really good advice. Unfortunately, that is all the questions we have time for tonight. I hope Rocco was able to answer a lot of your queries, but if not, please message them to us directly on social and we'll be able to get back to you with a response. Thank you everyone who tuned in. It was great to have you, and a huge thank you to Rocco for walking us through both listening and reading in this webinar and for answering some questions tonight. We'll see all of you in 2 weeks on the 3rd of June for our common IELTS mistakes to avoid webinar with Don Oliver returning. And the host will be Katie, who we saw a couple of weeks ago, who is absolutely spectacular. Thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone. Keep well, keep safe.
Thank you, everyone. Good night, and all the best with your IELTS. Thank you.